This video is for the non-technical students in my cybersecurity class. Much of the analysis of the phishing web link in this case study comes from Matt Tate, who works at the University of Texas. There's a link to Matt Tate's analysis in the YouTube video description. Phishing, with a PH, involves trying to fool people into revealing sensitive data such as passwords, social security numbers, and PIN codes. A phishing attack normally starts by hiding malicious content in an email attachment or providing a web link in an email that connects to a malicious website. The phishing example in this video involves an email sent to John Podesta, which tricked him into revealing his Gmail password. The hacker stole 50,000 of his emails and published them on WikiLeaks. On Saturday morning, March 19, 2016, John Podesta received an email in his personal Gmail account. This is a recreation of that. Although it looks like the sender is from Google, the from address was actually spoofed. Spoofing means the real sender is hidden. In this case, it was later determined the actual sender had an email account on Yandex.com, which is a Russian service similar to Google. If John Podesta had viewed this email on a PC, he could have moved his mouse over the Change Password button to see a bit.ly web link. Bit.ly is a popular service that shortens long web links. Shortened web links are useful if the original one is very long and the space to display the entire web link is limited. Shortened web links can also disguise a malicious website. John Podesta was suspicious of the email and forwarded it to one or more aides who sent it to an IT staffer. 5 different people were part of an email chain that incorporated the original phishing message. When WikiLeaks published the Gmails stolen from John Podesta, the email chain with the initial phishing message was published. This is the email chain in WikiLeaks. The original phishing message was converted from the web format to text because the email chain traversed multiple email servers. In the text format, instead of the Change Password button, we can see the bit.ly web link associated with that button. Let's copy this email into Notepad. In the default font, nothing looks unusual here, but if we change the font we can see that the O's in someone and password look different from the rest of the characters. That's because these O's are not the Latin characters used in English. They're Cyrillic characters used in Eastern European languages like Russian and Ukrainian. The Latin small letter A, E, and O look like Cyrillic characters, but in the computer, the numbers assigned to these letters are different. So what's going on? When I paste the text into Microsoft Word, you can see that the spell checker does not recognize the words with the Cyrillic characters. Changing a Latin character to a Cyrillic one is sometimes done by students to try to fool the plagiarism checker used for assignments. In this case, the hackers probably wanted to fool the Gmail spam checker. If I go back to WikiLeaks, I can copy the bit.ly link and paste it into a web browser followed by a plus sign. The bit.ly system shows the longer web link associated with the shorter one. Before this account was disabled, you can see the bit.ly link was clicked just twice, probably only by John Podesta and his staff. Clicking on the web link resulted in the web page shown here. The web link looks somewhat like a valid Google link, but if you look closer, you'll notice that it ends in .tk. TK is associated with Tokelau, a territory of New Zealand located in the South Pacific. Anyone can register a .tk website for free, and because .tk is largely unregulated, it's popular with hackers. Let's go back to bit.ly and copy the long web link and paste it into Notepad so that we can analyze it. The security sign-in options and password following the TK indicate there's a web page called password and a directory called sign-in options in a security directory. Nothing particularly unusual there. The question mark indicates one or more parameters follow. Let's separate out these parameters. The first one is E. The equal sign means the value of the parameter follows that. And ampersand means more than one parameter are connected. So let's separate these various parameters. This IMG one is kind of long. And you can see that we have 5 parameters: E, FN, N, IMG, and ID. Although it looks like gobbledygook following the parameters, it's actually base 64. Base 64 is a common text encoding scheme used for sending data on the web. To convert from base 64 to the original data, we can use a base 64 decoder. I'm going to copy the first parameter, E, into the decoder. Before I do the decoding, there's one more step. You'll notice the value of the parameter has a character string of %3D. In web links, a % sign indicates the next 2 characters have a special value. 3D is used to signify an equal sign. The reason to have a special way to represent an equal sign in a parameter value is that an equal sign already has a different meaning in a web link. The equal sign means the value of the parameter follows. To indicate there's an equal sign within the actual parameter value, the %3D is used. I'll replace the 3Ds with equal signs and then do the decode. You can see that the value that's returned is john.podesta@gmail.com. The parameter E is probably short for email. Let's decode the parameter FN. And you can see that decodes to John Podesta. The parameter FN is probably short for full name. Let's decode the parameter N. In this case, you'll notice I have to replace the %3Ds. And when I decode, I get the value John. The parameter N is probably short for name, as in common name. Let's copy the parameter IMG. In this case, I need to replace the %3D. And that decodes into a web link. Let's copy the web link. Into a web browser. And you can see I get a picture of John Podesta on the website googleusercontent.com. The parameter img is probably short for image. The parameter ID doesn't appear to be base64 text. The ID parameter is probably an identification code because the same approach was employed to phish over 1,000 people. Because thousands of phishing emails were being sent, the ID code was probably a way to track the specific message John Podesta received and the web link he clicked. The use of parameters allows the person doing the phishing to make the same web page look different for the various people they want to phish. Although John Podesta saw this web page, a mock-up of the generic web page would look something like this. The parameters img, fn, and e could be appended to the web link to fill in the img, fn, and e, that is image, full name, and email, on the web page to personalize the web page for each intended phishing victim. In order to customize specific web pages, the hacker needed a list of the web links with the unique parameters for each person they intended to phish. The hacker then needed a bit.ly link for each of those malicious web links. To automate and manage those bit.ly links, the person doing the phishing created a bit.ly account. A security research firm discovered the bit.ly account in this case study when they were investigating phishing attacks. The person who created the bit.ly account did not make it private, so the security research firm could see over 1,000 malicious web links in the bit.ly account. The owner of the bit.ly account used to phish John Podesta had the user ID John356GH. The email account associated with that user ID is shown here. The email account used to spoof the Gmail that John Podesta received had the actual email of hi.mymail@yandex.com. These accounts were associated with the Russian Alexei Lugashev. A similar phishing approach was used to gain access to the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. Once the Russians got a password for and infected the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee computers, they were able to gain access to the Democratic National Committee servers through a shared connection.